Ms. Cutter?
Thank you, Mr. Massimo, Director Stone, Dr. Robinson, colleagues and guests for being here, and to the public at large. I'm going to go through the financial status report for February 24, and it's for activities for January. The first slide, the FY25 budget process is in full swing. We've had a department training. The budget requests were due to finance on February 9th. Department meetings are scheduled for the March 5th through 8th. Our paratransit budget requests, we got an extension that will be in today, and our board budget workshop is scheduled for April 13th, 2024. Yes. Yes. Next slide, please. This slide is for January 31st, 2024, the financial overview. The operating account at the end of January 2024 was $12.1 million. The grant account was $5.2 million. And the Georgia One investment account was $8.3 million. Our revenue by category is outlined. You'll see the comparison for the month of January compared to the January budget. You'll see the year-to-date actual compared to the 24 budget and the variance. For the month of January, revenues exceeded expenditures by total revenues total $1.6 million. Our fair revenue, this is a comparison, July 23 through January 24, representing fiscal year 24 year to date. As you can see, the fluctuation of fixed route revenue, it increased during the month of January, low period in December. Paratransit as well.
May I ask a question? That's really interesting because I would think that it would have been flipped, that January, when people are out shopping, Christmas, what have you, would have been more than January.
Well, this is what came in.
Okay, that's very interesting.
Yeah. And same reflection for paratransit. The month of January, $9,132 in comparison to $7,878 in the month of December. Statement of account for the investment account, the Georgia One Fund. The interest for the month was $37,932, leaving a balance at the end of January of $8.3 million, a little over $8.3 million. A graphical expression of our transit tax revenue and our reserve fund interest data. Month of January, we haven't gotten the check-in from the county yet for the month of January. Typically, we receive that in early February, but we haven't received that yet. The Georgia Fund interest for the month was $37,932. As you can see, slightly up from December. Our December transit tax collections receipts are as follows. It totaled, broken down by category, real property, personal property, mobile homes, tag revenue, and other. Our revenue by category graphically displayed. No surprises. No surprises here, with the major source of revenue for the month was money we received from Chatham County for paratransit services and the special district transit tax. The fiscal year 24 projected cash balances are as displayed on the graph. For the month of January, it was $12.1 million. We anticipate a slight decrease in February, going up a little, going back down in March, down in April, down in May, and coming back up in the month of June. And that's pretty much driven by when residents pay their property taxes and when it's submitted to transit area, Chatham Area Transit Authority. Our expenses by division for the month of January are as outlined in the chart below. You have fixed route at $575,749. Paratransit, $182,055. Cat Connects, $14,543. Marine Services, $99,941. Maintenance, $447,373. Call Center, $53,300, and General Administration, $807,106, for a total of $2,180,068 for the month of January. You'll also see the year-to-date actual, the year-to-date budget, and the variance as of January 31st, 2024. Our expense by category, with salaries and wages being the bulk of the expense category, and employee benefits at 23%. This chart outlines the grant activity for the month of January 2024. I know this committee likes to see what the grant activity is for the month, and this chart shows the credits coming into the grant account, and the bottom portion of the chart shows all of the debits that were charged against the grant account. The receipts during the month totaled $1.1 million, and the debits totaled a little over $1.2 million. I'll be reporting human resources stats. One thing Cat realizes the importance of recruitment, holding on to valuable employees, and doing this by taking care of the whole employee via wellness programs, competitive wages, company benefits, and ensuring a work-family balance.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, ma'am.
With your wellness program, are we monitoring that, knowing how many employees are actually taking advantage of it?
Yes, we are.
Yeah, because I think it's important that we do a whole lot of things to make sure that they're healthy and safe, but we want to make sure they're taking advantage of it.
Yes, we are.
The other thing I'd like to add, but on this slide, is that Ms. Cutter has temporarily, I've shifted the HR management responsibilities back to the CFO's office temporarily. We've got a lot of things going on under the administrative support suite of activity, and we really needed to put some extra commitment to that wasn't divided with anything else really. And Ms. Cutter has done such a great job of taking that back and has such a historical perspective with it. But in addition to that, we expect over about the next 8 weeks, we have an intensive recruitment and evaluation process for an HR manager that is being supported through an email that I had described to you all, I think it was last week or earlier in this week. Carolyn Smalls, through a micro purchase arrangement, is going to be, and I know that we all know she has such an esteemed background with the county and such a depth of expertise, and she's going to be helping us and leveraging her expertise in that effort. So, but we expect to have an HR manager on board within the next 8 weeks.
What's a micro purchase?
That's great.
It's a particular kind of procurement method that we can utilize. It has to be under $10,000. It does not require competitive, proposals. You don't have to get 3 quotes, but it typically is going to be you demonstrate that the whatever it is that you're acquiring or utilizing services or whatever under that they do in fact possess a special level of skill and so forth, and Ms. Smalls certainly does that. Thank you for that question, Dr. Robinson.
In addition to that, we have to ensure that the fee is reasonable.
Yes.
Okay, our recruitment stats for January are displayed in this chart, and I'm not going to read through it, but ask the directors to please take a look at all of the charts and that's been presented. And if you have any questions regarding the stats, please let me know so that I can make sure that those responses are available to you for board meeting on next week. As you can see, the applications received were 82. The qualified applications received were 82. Applications that were not qualified total 123. We extended 10 offers. There were 11 new hires, and we still have 60 vacancies.
Got it.
And the bulk of those are in our fixed route.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Next slide, please. Our retention strategies. As you all know, we have invested and budgeted for significant dollars in staff training and development for fiscal year 24, and encouraged departments to take advantage of this opportunity to enhance training and development for your staff. We have leadership training and development dollars also budgeted within the FY24 budget, dollars for team building. And our CAT Cares initiatives that we implemented early in the fiscal year, back in July. And really these initiatives were really to encourage commitment on both the agency side and the employee side. On the agency side, taking better care of employees, the whole employee. Some of the initiatives are the fresh fruits every Friday. That's placed in each break room within the facility. Bringing in outside resources for estate planning, financial literacy. We recently hosted an employee health fair. We do lunch and learn sessions. We've had several this fiscal year. We incorporate employee fun days, and of course, education on retirement plan investing. Employee wellness program initiatives for the month. Again, the fresh fruit is every Friday. Lunch and learn, we had one session in January, 10 strategies for better time management. We had 25 participants. Of course, the wellness calendar with wellness tips is distributed monthly. And we had the mobile mammogram, 15 participants participated with that, sponsored by St. Joseph's Candler on January 22nd. The Employee Wellness Fair was held on January 16th from 11 to 4. There were 84 participants. The vendors that were on site were from United Healthcare, Healthy Savannah, United Way, Mission Square. That's our retirement plan vendor. And of course, St. Joseph's Candler.
Employees were cycling during the day,
Yes,
yeah.
yes. And that concludes my report for today. I encourage any questions or any additions to the report, if desired, to please let me know, and we will do the best that we can to have everything ready for you at board.
I also wanted to give a big shout out to Ms. Cutter. She's been leading a very intensive effort for our budget submission to the county that is going to be submitted today. And we are always appreciative of all of the partnerships we have with the county, with the city, and other members of the community. That's how we move CAP forward. But the excellence of her financial work is especially important in this budget request. And so I just wanted to give her a thank you for the effort.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, that takes us to the administrative services presentation.
We wanted to make a special request, Chairperson Stone and Dr. Robinson, if it's all right with you. I think our guests that are here from Pond that wanted to go over the ITC interior renovation that's a part of the things that fall under administration. I think I understood you all have to be out by a little earlier. Is it all right with you if we bring that up under his report?
Please.
And okay, very good. Well,
It's
thank you so
number
much for
4.
that.
It's number 4.
It's 4B.
Right, but we could go ahead and take that now, right?
Yes,
Yes.
ma'am, with your permission, absolutely.
Sure.
Thank you so much.
Good afternoon again to Chairman Stone and Dr. Robinson. You all will have to excuse me a little bit today. I think I've caught something that does not agree with my voice, but with that in mind, what I'd like to do is take the opportunity to have Ms. Cassie Beckwith, who is with Pond, and she is here today to talk about the IFB and the renovation to the ITC.
So we have, and I don't know if there's where I need to stand to be. Okay. So we have, and y'all, everybody's probably seen this, but this is just kind of a floor plan showing the existing and then what the renovations would include. And so Gene Bell is probably who most of y'all know. He's worked with, of course, I know all of you know Melissa Phillips. But I am kind of a fill-in for Gene today, and I will answer as many questions as I can, and whatever I cannot answer, I will take back to him, and we will get resolved and answered before the board meeting next week, or any other additional information that y'all need. And so the top one, of course, is existing floor plan, and then the bottom one shows the renovation with the new boardroom, and then the new seating, as well as this is, you see here, these are the benches that we were talking about. And so those are on the outside of that new wall for the boardroom.
So that's 3 and then 3? Am I saying
Yes.
that? Uh-huh.
So 3 on one side and 3 on the other side. And we have a very basic bench that, that we picked out for this. It's a metal bench, and I don't know if you can show that one too, please. Just so y'all can see the. Just a very basic metal bench for the seating outside of the board bin. But as Ms. Fay was saying, that the furniture inside of the boardroom could be used outside of a board meeting, so that when people are coming into the station, they can use that space as well as the seating inside there. It can all be arranged differently. It's kind of like this furniture, you can pick furniture that you can move these to the back, and then you have chairs out sitting where people on a regular day basis could use. And then when you have your board meetings, you set the furniture up the way that you need it for the board meetings.
So these are gonna be inside the lobby area, the
Yes, ma'am.
waiting area?
Well, they're in that, let's put it back up, Dr. Robinson, it's these things.
Yeah, but that's inside the lobby area.
Yes,
am I
ma'am.
right? Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. So it's still inside, it's still sheltered, it's still climate controlled. The other thing that we're trying to make sure that we do with this is we certainly provide a very proper space for board meetings and such, but we're also trying to maintain the flexibility of this space so that, to your point, I think that when we need to accommodate our passengers or maybe a special community meeting or whatever it might be, that this room has that kind of flexibility to respond to the needs that we have on a daily and event style, basis.
So this is the interior of the building.
Yes.
So now, when we go outside the building, there's already seating area outside?
Yes, ma'am.
So that would stay?
Yes, ma'am.
That
There's
pretty much
seating
it.
underneath
Right.
the platform.
Right.
And there's also some seating right up against the building and down on that end, where there's kind of almost like a courtyard area
Right,
down on that
right.
end. There's some down there as well.
And so, now, are we losing, on the inside, are we losing any space when it comes to your office downtown and the legal office down? Are we losing any of that?
No, ma'am, we're not losing, we're gaining space because Greyhound desired to have lesser space and they only desired to use 2 of the 3 bays for buses
right.
outside. So we're not losing any space, and what we're going to try to do for the good of all of our employees is, the area that was the old boardroom?
Right.
We're going to repurpose that for training use because we need more spaces to offer different kinds of trainings, especially when they're going on at the same time. It's quite a juggle right now when we have, we've got the library upstairs and we've got this room, but it's still, when you have a lot of different things going on, it's quite a juggle. So we will be using those spaces differently and more flexibly also to commit for the greater needs of all of our employees. So
Okay, so that boardroom is going away, the existing one? It's
the
going
little
away.
one.
Okay, for some reason I thought that was still there.
No, the office will
Space
be
is
there,
used.
but it'll be used now for training purposes. Or other office needs, for hiring staff. I know you've heard us before when we originally were having some conversations about other, real estate acquisitions even to try to accommodate what our space needs are going to be over our future. And so that might even be a space, but again, what we're trying to do is make these spaces more flexible so that they can respond to our needs as we're growing and changing.
Okay, as I look at those two, can you show me where the existing boardroom is now?
Here,
That's that space, yeah, that's what I thought.
yes.
Okay, and then
So here, it's still here.
it's still here,
But y'all are gonna be using it for different purposes.
right? So now we're coming out where Greyhound, some of the space where Greyhound was. Okay, I see it, yeah,
This is actually,
right, okay, I see it now,
that's the existing CEO's other office. Right, so this will now be used as a multi-purpose room for training and other things that come up.
okay,
And then all of your board activities get shipped over here.
so when I walk in that building, and I walk into that new space,
Yes.
am I coming in through?
You're coming in through one of the outside doors. You could also come in the other end of the building like you can now, where you can swipe in on that far end of the building where the little courtyard area and the bike racks and all that are. You could still come in that way and walk all the way through.
Okay.
Yes, you enter in here, and then there's the lobby with benches on the outside of the wall, the new boardroom of the wall, and then you enter the boardroom here, or back here, and so this is all a large space with flexible furniture to move around and to use however you need it at that time.
The other thing, Dr. Robinson, is this is also a part, you had asked me this question earlier on the Greyhound is going to be building in their own restrooms on their end as a part of their renovation. They're doing a renovation on their end and they will have their own restrooms on that end. So again, the security of our restrooms will be stronger than it is right now. And again, that's been a location where we've had some security issues of concern, and this will help us facilitate that as well. they've not shared all their plans with us yet, but, but they have made that, that commitment, that statement.
That was all that I had to present. Any questions I can take or?
Did that help, Dr. Robinson?
Oh, that looks good.
Not being an architect. It looks good. You know, everything looks good on paper. It looks good.
So as far as for the board meeting next week, is there, in addition to this, are there other things that y'all would like us to bring, to show this is what this looks like, or is this sufficient? I want to make sure that,
I think I like the same offer that Ms. Cutter made. Let us look at it, and I'm sure if we have anything else, we can convey it to Faye, and she in turn can
absolutely.
let you guys, or whoever we need to give it to. Thank you.
Thank you all so much for letting us move that around on the
Yeah.
agenda as well.
Yes, thank you.
All right.
Not a problem.
All right, we're going to turn it back over now to CAO Sanders to move through the rest of the administrative services presentation.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Beckworth, and thank you, Chairman Stone, for allowing us that brief deviation. I'm going to continue moving forward with going into the administrative services monthly report, and I'm going to begin with talking about some of our training departments updates. And as you can see, first item is retraining, and of course retraining is involved whenever there's an accident that occurs with one of the drivers of the buses. For the month of January, I want to note that there were 4 preventable accidents. 3 of them involved paratransit drivers, and 1 related to a fixed route. Under planned trainings, and when I say planned trainings, there has been an ongoing collaboration between myself and Dr. Manny, the COO, to take a comprehensive look along the way in terms of training more in depth. And one of the things that he has requested is that there be training for the entire IT customer service staff, customer service training that is, and we're also looking at, the training department is also looking at devising curriculums for both the Marine and for the ITC staff. Dr. Manny has probably shared with you all in the January meeting, there's a Delta Airlines model that he likes, that he is trying to implement here. And the simple answer for that model is he has shared with me that, you know, if there's a problem with baggage, Delta's come up with a system where they have specific customer service people that may address baggage. If there's late flights, they've got a specific group that just may deal with that or other specific instances. And he wants to bring a version of that model to CAT. That doesn't mean that the staff won't continue to take calls that may come in that are miscellaneous oriented. But as I understand it, he wants to set this up where where perhaps 3 of the customer service staff could deal with fixed route issues. When somebody calls in, you know, they're gonna address any fixed route issue that may come up. There may be a couple of them that deal with paratransit issues specifically when those issues come up, rather than the calls floating around and going back and forth. And so
One other thing really quickly, let me mention too, on the marine and ferry boat staff, we just recently had an offer. You know, we're talk all the time about partnerships, and our partners with SAMI, including the Chamber, the Visit Savannah, and the Tourism Leadership Council, have offered that they would be more than happy to include us in their customer service training for the part of our marine and ferry boat staff, since they sort of operate in a very partnership kind of way, especially with the tourism events and so forth. And so that may be another training opportunity on customer service that we take advantage of, that they would extend us and just include us in their overall activities. So,
At no cost?
yes, ma'am.
You know, one thing, I was kind of gonna save this, but when I see this, CAT wasn't just open today. We've been always operating. We've never had training manuals before. There's none existing that you guys have looked at or tried to improve on.
On customer service?
Yeah.
We've been doing, we started off trying to adapt you know, to the same sort of thing that Mr. Sanders was talking about. You know, we started off looking at Disney because Disney has such a world-class customer experience. So
Right, but no, but what my question was, no, yeah.
but to your point is I think it's been intermittent, and we've sort of been using things like whether it's Disney or Delta or just something else. We've been using things, but consistency of that, we have not.
CAT does not currently have any kind of, before you, any kind of training manual whatsoever. This is our first venture to create something that was standard, specific to CAT.
No.
I
mean,
I
No,
haven't
ma'am, we-
seen anything standardized, but that doesn't mean it didn't exist at some point, Dr. Robinson. I would hesitate to make a blanket statement,
yeah.
and then somebody finds something from 10 years ago that I didn't know about. But I will tell you that there wasn't anything that was routinely being used when I got here. And we've been sort of working it, but not working it, to your point, in a way where we have a process, we follow it, it happens all the time, it's very routine, and that's what this effort that Mr. Sanders and the rest of the members of our team are undertaking will hopefully accomplish. But I also really appreciate it when we have partnership opportunities with others in the community that are doing things, and they'll include us in it, especially when they'll include us in it without additional cost to us in order to better all of us, because we're really bettering Chatham County and bettering Savannah. It's one Chatham.
So when we do retraining based on an accident, what manual are we using?
There's a more specific one that training is more, safety is more involved with. There's a very prescribed,
Yes.
sort of detailed training outline. If you've got, doesn't matter what type of accident, whether you've hit a tree or somebody's hit the operator, it's required, as I understand it, that operator has to go to a retraining.
We have,
Through
Yes,
safety.
yeah.
Okay.
we have
Or
to
safety
follow
oriented.
FTA training
Yes.
for safety. That's different. I thought you were asking exclusively about customer service.
Right, I was.
But for the other training, there is and has been a very specific protocol that we follow, and it's the FTA regulations and guidelines that we are encumbered by.
Okay, yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Got it.
But that was a great question. Thank you.
Yeah, and I want to piggyback on what Mr. Masterman said. Standardization is important. It's something that I've placed a high value on since coming here. And for all the reasons that have previously been mentioned, as well as your comments, standardization is good also, because in my mind, not everybody will be here 3, 4 years from now or 10 years from now. And so one of the things that I've tried to place a focus on in talking and working, collaborating with the staff is that, okay, if I'm not here, you're not here, we still need to be consistent in terms of the product that we deliver. Therefore, we need outlines in place that are both standard and that ensure training consistency. So those are also some themes that we're drawing on as we're creating these. And the interfacing with the customer service staff over at ITC and Marine, these are specific sort of training, customer service training outlines, if you will, that Dr. Manny requested through his ideas of how he wants to better innovate these areas. And so we've had several meetings internally about it, including one earlier today. And I think we're gonna come back to you perhaps at a later date and say, hey, here's what we've done, here's what we've accomplished, here's how it's enhancing the way that we do business. So that's sort of the background on these.
And we kind of look at that through customer complaints, and determine the real need for customer service training.
Yes, ma'am. I believe we can, and I think that over time we can take that to the next level, because I know you had mentioned to us in a previous meeting that, he and I need to talk and collaborate about, are there correlations between complaints and service delivery? I took note of that mentally and I wrote it down, and I think that as we move forward, I think that that's a little bit more, in my mind, a statistical comparison. But I think as we continue to move forward, it is my hope and goal to try and do just that and bring some information back that you all can look at and that we can use.
So Dr. Robinson and Director Stone, I will tell you, I think there's actually two pieces to that. I think there's the part of that was just being described about being responsive to areas that are noted as concern through complaints and so forth. But the other part of it is, for example, you've got a largely new marine and ferry boat staff. You may have a lot of new ITC folks. So it's a matter of not waiting for the complaint, but bringing people in on the front end with the expectations of how we want customer service to occur, and that the expectations that we have for how we treat our customers and so forth. And we're training people on the front end, so we never get to the complaint response. We've been preventative, if you will, rather than responsive.
Proactive versus.
Gotcha.
Yes, ma'am.
Gotcha.
Okay. Next slide, please. Okay. This is going to be an opportunity under, IT update. I believe there was a request that I was made aware of where you all wanted the IT and innovation manager, who is here with us today, Mr. Mark Gladhill. He is here, and what I'm going to do for a few minutes, if you will allow, is for him to be able to take the opportunity to share with you some things that he sees that we need to, put emphasis on as it relates to our IT structure. So.
Yes, please.
Good afternoon. I put together just a brief overview of where our business is and where it was when I started. If you don't mind, I'll run right down through it.
Did we hand this out to everyone?
I believe it was,
Okay, you've got it. I just wanted to make sure you had it.
I made sure. And I believe Ms. Beverly put it as an attachment.
Okay.
So what I'll start with is our computer inventory on the desk side, which is what everybody uses to function every day. When I got here, 98 machines were in production, split between laptops, desktops, and thin clients. The first thing we did is we ran through and verified what was in warranty and what wasn't. We determined that the mass majority of those were end of life and out of warranty. So last year, as part of our FY24 budget, we requested and were given a set amount of money to begin that replacement. To date, we have replaced 50 plus of those devices across the entire business. From the call center's brand new setup, every device down there is brand new. And we've replaced 20 desktops and 20 laptops in this building. So that would take us to our network inventory. When I got here, the ITC was due a firewall replacement. In looking at the quote versus what we needed, we were able to get Infinity to resize the device at the ITC for a $7,000 cost savings. We then inventoried all of our network. We run today a split network, so our computer systems run on one set of hardware and our phones and cameras run on another.
That's a good way to do it?
It's not necessarily. In the time it was, because we had different vendors doing that work. Right. What we're proposing for the budget cycle this year is to upgrade everything across the board and consolidate, because then I have shared ports, because today you can run your phone and your computer off one connection versus two. So I can downsize the amount of hardware needed to support our business and better support our business at the same time. So we get down to one single infrastructure in each building, and phones and computers, they all plug in the same. Cameras will do the same as well. They'll plug into a separate piece, but in that same structure.
And would that be a cost saving overall, or what, how
Yeah.
would we see it?
So we had an original cost proposal last year that I put together that was working with Infinity just for this building was $99,000. To cover this building and the ITC this year, we're at $65K. So just one building for 100 or both buildings for 65,000, just by going back through and reevaluating, do we really need what we thought we needed? So we're able to go from this chassis switch system down to just normal things that every business runs for considerable cost savings to us to accomplish the same goal.
So in our work with Infinity is what? What does Infinity do for us?
Infinity still does the mass majority of our day-to-day and all of our back-end support. So all of our server support, all of our network support. The only things we house internally that I take care of every single day is phones. And the conduit between our business and Infinity to make sure our requests go in a little bit better worded sometimes, because I can put them in a manner that they'll understand without having to call me first before they can actually start working on the problem.
Gotcha. Okay.
So the next thing, and we're also upgrading the Wi-Fi in the yard to better support all of our vehicles in the fleet being able to report when they get back at the end of the day. So our fixed route buses come in and they offload data every single day. We're upgrading our system in the yard. Right now, if you're not close to our building, it doesn't upload very fast. We're setting ourselves up so that anywhere in our yard, they will have good, solid connection and be able to upload quicker.
Now, Mark, with the renovation to the IT building, would we have customer access to internet or we don't?
At the ITC,
Yeah.
there is cat guest there as well as on our buses.
Okay. Okay.
And in this building, if you walk in here, you'll see a network called Cat Guest, and the password is welcome to Cat. So anybody that walks through the door, if they want to connect, can connect. Printers and copiers are next. They are toward the end of life at this point, so we're going to recommend upgrading the 3 here. And when we build out the new space for David Flanders and maintenance in the back, we're going to put a smaller mid-sized business style copier back there and eliminate a few page printers that are more expensive than it will be. And if I'm being honest, it's always been my problem that if my printer sits where my boss sits, I think about what I got to print. Do I really need that or don't I? Because you got to walk in your boss's office all the time. They're like, why are you here? Tends to eliminate some of that stuff.
Good.
Server inventory. We have 2 physical servers here that support 16 virtual servers. So in that virtual environment, that controls our logins, the terminal server connections that we use to get to different programs. Trapeze is loaded in that environment. CleverCAD is loaded in that environment. Those things are used across business lines. That was all pre-COVID setup. So we're still using that, but we're in the process of reevaluating what those needs really look like as we transition more to a cloud-based solution for as much as possible, whether it's Munis, Trapeze, the app servers that all of our Clever data runs around these things. We're trying to offload all of this into the cloud whenever possible to eliminate those physical machines here.
But what we currently have are not duplications. They're all necessary.
Yes, ma'am.
And now, I don't see Clever on here.
Clever is a program loaded on the app servers.
What does that mean?
It's just, what they do is they take instead of it loading on your computer and Stephanie's computer and Faye's computer, and they put it in one place and we all connect to that one place. So they install it and support it in one place versus 3 or 4 or 10.
But I
Ease
think
of use.
You spent some money with Clever, right?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
But that's what I say, I don't see it. I see it on.
Well, Clever's not a server. Clever's Clever's a program
They're
that
cloud-based.
does things,
Yep.
and it has to connect to the server, perhaps, or in the cloud or whatever, in order to do what it does. But
Yes, we have a hosted service with them that provides all of that back end. The app servers are just for access to a couple of specific programs that we use today.
And Clever is not one thing. Mark is really the expert on this, and that's, I think, one of the questions that you and others have had in the past, Dr. Robinson, is Clever's not one thing. Clever is like a family of programs, and there's all these modules that do different things, and you don't have to buy all the modules, you just buy what you need.
Yes,
And then you even maybe want to sequence what you need. In other words, you need to get all this going before you go over there and pick that piece and so forth. And so that's why you've seen Clever continue to come up. It's not the same Clever every time, but it's Clever that integrates and provides a sort of fulsome of what we need through different components.
That's why I asked about duplication, some of these things, but, okay.
As far as servers themselves, we don't have duplication. What we're working to do is eliminate the need for them by consolidating what we're actually doing. A lot of the things that are loaded and used on there can be loaded on someone's direct machine because we don't have everybody working remotely anymore. That was the purpose of this, is when everybody was home, it gave a mechanism for everyone to, excuse me, connect in and get to the various items that they needed. So we will continue to reevaluate what those needs look like and consolidate down so that we lower the amount of servers that we have and pay for every month. We have added 2 physical servers since my arrival. The GFI server failed as I was coming on board, so we replaced that so that we can inventory our monies every day coming off of our buses. And then we added the physical server for the camera system for all of our on-demand vehicles at this point. We are in the midst of migrating from a Datto service to an Axient service for backups. Again, cost savings to our business, newer, better, runs faster. If we move on to phone system, we're running a phone system that reached end of support in 2018. So we are on borrowed time, and that will be part of what we discussed this year through the budgeting process, along with the network hardware that has to be in place before we can do that.
I wanted to mention that too, because a lot of Mark's presentation today is in response to the request that Director Odell made of us last month about what's your IT plan, what's the IT plan? This is the IT plan, but the reason at this point you don't see it costed out is because you're gonna see that during the budget process, so you can see how everything fits together and the prioritization considerations that we would be recommending. But that's not included in this today. This is just really sort of putting the scope of everything out there, and you'll see the financial piece of it in the budget process.
You read my mind, didn't you?
Well, that's
I was
good.
waiting to get to the end. but-
And to be honest, all of that stuff has already been submitted to Miss Stephanie. As she will tell you, I am always on time with what's asked for of me, and all of my stuff is spread over a 5-year period. So if we determine that we're going to move ahead with a Clever module, we know what our first year costing is, as well as our cost out to 5 years. So as we move into a capital budget item for that, we have all that information at our fingertips.
What you can't project is what would happen
Correct.
with the cost of, technology change.
Correct.
We
And
get as
that,
close as we can, but,
yes, ma'am.
yeah.
All right.
That's why the capital plan is a 5-year plan, because things change.
Mm-hmm.
But at least we have an allocation and a financial plan, whether it's what we originally projected or whether it's a more beneficial piece of technology. It's laid out in that capital plan every year.
You're truing up every year, in effect, is what you're doing, is you're truing up every year with what your forecast of need is. And that enables you, though, because it happens annually, it enables you to true it up to, well, what has changed and what has changed in cost, as well as the need, like technology getting, improved or whatever.
And I think Mark, what I'm really hearing is your thoughts about how do we plan for future?
Yes, ma'am.
Stuff is aging, and we haven't done anything about it.
That's correct. I mean, we're in a game of trying to catch up at this point.
Yeah.
There was a considerable amount of time that our business just, if it ran, we ignored it. And now we're at the point where we can no longer ignore it and Band-Aid it up and think it's going to continue to last us. That's where we were with the network hardware that I started with. Those things end of life in one set in 2018 and the other set in 2020. So all of this hardware is on borrowed time.
And that issue is one, and I know you know this, that both you and Chairperson Stone know this, is that that issue of deferred maintenance, deferred capital programming, you can see that literally in every single part of CAT. I don't think that it's not completely unlike some of our colleagues across the country where deferred, but I will tell you here, it is particularly acute across fixed route, para, equipment like this, building needs, heating and air, all of it, all of it. The amount that we have to figure out how to get it done in the time frame before we do hit a failure point with any one of these things is pretty dramatic.
Okay. Thank you.
I can be done.
Same with the ferries.
So the rest of it is basically a cheat sheet breakdown of what our business looks like and what components are used in each portion. I can run through them or we can talk about them sideline, but it gives you kind of a good idea of what we use, why we use it, and how we support it every day.
And the only other thing I'd want to ask, Mark, I think before, each of us as board members had laptops at some point.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm not sure what's happening with that, because there was some talk about that early on. I know we got rid of all the laptops.
Yes, ma'am.
Beverly, how does that fit in with what you're doing with the board administration stuff?
All together. We already have a PO for a purchase order, so once these agenda management software is implemented, we will roll those new, either Apple or Windows Surface, laptops or tablets to the board.
So that's all a part of his,
Yes, ma'am.
okay.
It's a part of his and it's
Okay.
a
Yes,
part
ma'am.
of what Beverly's working on. And Beverly and I, as a matter of fact, just talked about it today, and you'll see a little bit of an update on this in your snapshot. That we thought that we would have that agenda management software on sooner, but apparently they've got quite a demand and we've gotten in the queue and we're a little behind, and it's a little unclear exactly when we're going to get it, but in the spring right now, but
That is
just
correct.
not as soon as we had hoped.
Yes, that is correct.
Any other questions or comments for Mark?
Good report.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sanders.
Yes, ma'am.
With that, let's move to the next slide, please. Okay. There was some conversation or some requests. I think Director Robinson, it may have been you, where you'd had some questions dating back to the last meeting about security, particularly at the ITC. Mr. Kennedy was scheduled to be with us today. Unfortunately, he has a little bit more serious version of what I may be catching, so apologize for his absence. Hopefully, he'll be available for the Tuesday meeting.
Okay.
But in the interim, today I will attempt to do the best that I can to answer any questions that you have, and I'll begin also by kind of spotlighting some thoughts that he and I have been discussing this week, and that we discussed briefly this morning. I know there was some concern about, are the monitors working at ITC, and I'm glad that I got my colleague Mark here today. And the answer to that, as I understand it, is that they are. They don't necessarily cover all of the angles necessarily that we might want them to. But Mark, you want to touch on that
And the
also?
monitors working is only one piece of it. If we can see what's happening, that's fine. But we got to have people there, because the monitors can't step into a situation and prevent or de-escalate or whatever. And that's when the things that we were talking about, it's not enough to just be monitoring in those kinds of things. We've got to have the monitor plus the personnel together to manage situations.
One of the things I was asking about was the ability of customers to monitor the incoming of the buses, whether it's on time or whether it's late.
Yep.
Yeah.
And those are things that I was asking, were those things currently working, or is it
Yes,
something we're working on?
We had, both monitors are now working again in the lobby at the ITC. One of those was down. We had that serviced and it is back up and running, so they are both up in parallel at the ITC.
And the app should be working too.
Yes, ma'am.
So that if they're using the app, that should be giving them that same information as well. Dr. Robinson?
Likewise, I think, excuse me, there may have been a question about patrols and patrols for both the ITC and for Central. Obviously, they tie into staffing, and unfortunately, our staffing in safety continues to be a little up and down. That being said, you know, we are continuing internally to partner with each other, myself, Ms. Cutter, Mr. Kennedy, to be as aggressive as we can as it relates to recruitment of officers. But you know, we can't always control whether or not a person decides to stay with us or not. And we've lost. I thought we were kind of edging back to having that full staff here recently, but unfortunately, through circumstances somewhat beyond our control, we've lost some credible officers here recently.
I think there's some promising developments there, though, that are today, and we should talk about it. So we've actually made 4 offers, or 4. So we actually have 4 offers that have been extended just in the last day or two, this last week. So,
And there's
This report.
so that's moving forward, and so I expect our own staffing to be back up a bit. But in addition to that, we have identified some additional safety, security type companies that are in our market here, including companies that are being used by folks like Publix, Kroger, those kinds of entities. And we've reached out, we've had several, I know we had at least one of them in this week, but we've been talking to several to get quotes so that we can have, in effect, an on-call situation with security personnel, so that when we do have either peaks, say at St. Patrick's Day, and we need additional personnel beyond what we would even hire, and we can help bring in some additional folks. Or if we have a couple of people leave and we need to fill a hole for a week or two, then we're doing that and bringing in. So we're making sure that the security personnel staffing is maintained at a level that is adequate to ensure the safe operations of our employees and our passengers.
When I look at your recruitment status report for safety, security, and risk, you have security officers part-time, security officers full-time, and you have, now I can't tell from this report, what is your staffing need 18 total, or you're down by 18 and you reduce that to where you have 7 vacancies? What is, for our own security staff, what is the total number of individuals needed to ensure that CAT can have its own security staff?
I believe that number is 8.
So you
Okay,
got-
we had some part-time positions that were converted to,
Those are applications received.
Right,
okay.
The total positions in safety, security officers, and safety, security, and risk, originally there were 7 full-time
7, okay.
and 7 part-time. However, they have converted 4 of the part-time to 2 full.
Right.
So now you're gonna have 9 and 4. Most people want full-time work.
right.
That has been a part of the problem with people staying. So they diverted 4 of the part-time positions to 2 full-time positions to give us 9 full-time security positions.
And the reason I ask that is, if we're gonna go out and seek temporary services, why would we make these part-time, full-time? Are we really saving any money? Is that the idea, to save money?
No, ma'am,
The idea was, while we were in the recruitment process, so that the facilities are covered with security services, we will have these interim, outside contractual agreements to fill the void.
it's just to fill gaps.
Yeah.
And not only to fill gaps during a recruitment, you know, ebb and flow like that, but also, for example, when we have a major event like a St. Patrick's Day, or like some of these things that occur here, and you just need some extra eyes, extra personnel, and we can put some people on buses instead of just having them out at physical locations, which we've done that a couple times too. It's just to give us the flexibility to plug needs as they intermittently come up.
But I guess I go back to my original question, is that if you're telling me it only takes 9 full-time people to secure these 2 buildings, that's all we're looking for? Is that what I'm hearing?
Now, that's not my projection. That was the service plan presented by the Safety, Security, and Risk Department. Those were the needs. And so that's, of course, what we budget for in terms of positions. I don't recall what is being asked for in the 25 budget. There may be more.
We should take a look at that.
Sure.
No, I think we did plug in more because I know when I met with Safety, Security, and Risk Management to discuss their request before it went to Ms. Cutter, we had increased it. I don't remember the amount by.
Yeah, because if you're talking 2 buildings, and I think it's beneficial for us to have our own security staff.
Yes,
You
ma'am.
control those people better. But I also think that you're right, you have to have incentive to keep them here. And I think if we waste a whole lot of money training and retraining people if we can find a way to keep those ones that we have. But I just think that if I look at the numbers here, it just don't make sense to me for these 2 buildings not to have more security. That,
And that was one thing that was brought to the attention of our safety division, that both sites needed security. And that was the reasoning. They really took a close look at the needs as we go through this fiscal year 25 budget process to ensure that we have the manpower to provide services to both sites.
And Savannah PD has finally really activated on the agreement we have with them. Their personnel have started stopping over much more routinely now. They have access now. We have ID cards for them, and they'll come in, they'll park out front, so you'll see that visibility of them being here. They'll come in and use the facilities, cup of coffee, grab a snack, fill out their reports that they need to fill out while they're sitting in our break room, gives them a chance to interact with our operators and hear what our operators are seeing out in the field and share things back and forth, builds that great, strong partnership. So that's been happening. I do still think, at least for the time being, and of course we only use it when we need it, I think having those contract services just, again, to plug and fill gaps as we need to, is still going to be an important tool for us, at least for a period of time. And I think in addition, I think you're right, Dr. Robbins. I think in addition, though, to looking at what we need to cover the 2 facilities, I do think that we need to have those floaters, if you want to call them that can be assigned to routes, so that they're moving around and they're out on our buses and are seen out on our buses, uniformed presence, especially on routes where we might have more activity that needs that kind of deterrent presence. So anyway, all of the above.
And what I will do, in the interest of time, because I agree to limit my questions and maybe bring them up at the board meeting, but what I would suggest is, as we look at the expenditures going out for security, if part-time is an issue, then we need to consider what would it take for us to change some of those part-times to full-time, even versus going into finding people on call. I mean, if the money is the same, then let's hire the people that we've got. If we're spending money outside of that, it just seems like you can't control those folk either. But if you hire these folk, I'm just thinking from a financial point, I think we need to look at it seriously enough that, are we really getting the best bang for our bucks by doing that? And that's, that's for another, but that's my suggestion, and it'll probably come up again in another conversation.
We'll be prepared to discuss that more fully.
Yeah, we can get more into that at the board meeting.
Yes, ma'am. And to piggyback on what was mentioned earlier about patrols for the buses, I also took steps to institute patrolling of Cat Central out of an abundance of caution and comment that was received from a number of our employees who work late. And I know of potential incidents that may have occurred, and I immediately thought, as a girl dad, we can't have that happen under any kind of circumstances. And so when the staffing was at least a little bit better, I had a meeting with Mr. Kennedy, and we put together a plan where, even with the staffing being low, they were able to cover the ITC, and patrols began here at Cat Central. And I think you know, there's been positive feedback from the employees who have said to me, hey, we appreciate that. So we've tried to be comprehensive under the circumstances, and as we get the staffing better, we'll certainly be able to do the coverage better. So I just wanted to plug that in. And then also, the last thing I would mention about that is, I think in one of my emails that I got, there's two safety officers that will be starting next week, if I read
That's correct.
the email correctly. So that's very positive. The quicker we can get that number back up close to full staffing, obviously, the better. So I just wanted to just mention that for what it's worth.
We're escorted to our cars in the evening now when we're here later at night, after dark and so forth, and especially for those that have to park in the lot across the street. But even on this side street, there's a lot of activity in the evenings. We're escorted to our vehicles at night now by the security personnel.
And Mark, back to technology too, when it comes to monitoring, like Ms. Mascio said, it's one thing to have monitors, but not having people to monitor those monitors. And I think, I mean, you can't go wrong with more cameras. You know, you just can't go wrong with more cameras when it comes to safety. So when having said that, does that mean hire more people, Mr. Mascio, for that particular entity, or exactly what are we talking about?
I
when we say
think,
that?
we need to look at that, Dr. Robinson, from, I'm gonna sound like Ms. Cutter for a minute. We need to look at efficiencies on that. And we need to make sure that we are looking at, we need to sit down as a team and think about, okay, if we've got more equipment and we can do more of the monitoring by camera, what's the right way to monitor what's coming in on that, and be able to activate the personnel needed to respond. We need to think about the smartest and most efficient and effective ways to do that. But I think that that's a good point to bring up and something good for us to consider in this budget process.
Because Mark, I have a small building, right? And I have a device, you know, that I can, in fact, a homeless person ended up on the steps, sitting on the porch. And I have children in my building during the day. And I was on my cell phone. And I was able to actually, the person could hear me speak to them. Because the lady inside the building, she calls me, she says, who's sitting on the porch? I'm not, you know, but anyway, I can speak to ask them to move on. It's something that simple, and that's real simple. So I'm just thinking we've got to have a sophisticated way.
We do. This is part of what was this year into the budget process. So we have additional cameras, access to buildings, all of that stuff is part of this year's request for new hardware, et cetera.
We just need to figure out the monitoring of it, and then on the personnel
The
side.
monitoring part is more a safety and security thing.
Yeah.
I can
Exactly.
give you all the
We
tools
just need to match
see all the
those.
places, but if we don't have the people there to be able to actually monitor what's happening, then obviously that's not the best solution.
Well,
We are proposing additional cameras and access controls for both buildings this year.
And that's part of hiring and determining where that person's gonna best fit, you know, what they're gonna be doing on that shift. You know, if you got enough people on a particular shift, you can assign somebody to be doing that. But anyway,
Okay.
because safety is so important.
It is.
All right, well, next slide. This is the normal report that I've started making since January. It's the safety and security risk management also, and this is just the accident summary report, and I'll just go through it real quickly. Mr. Kennedy and his staff track this information. What we have for January is 7 preventable accidents, 6 of which were off-site, 1 was on-site, and we have 9 non-preventable accidents, and all of those were off-site. And I'll let you, just take a look at the description on the type of accident for your information, but won't go through it any further other than that unless there's some questions.
None.
Okay, next slide. Okay, and I call this the sort of crime deterrence section of information that he shared with me, and it outlines that there were 20 documented enforceable bans issued on problematic individuals who have had a tendency to be on our buses, and so there's a tracking and a monitoring of this type of activity so we can stay on top of it. And then the other item is there have been 3 individuals who've engaged, unfortunately, in some form of harassment that we've had to be aggressive with and ban them from being able to participate in public transit via CAT. Next slide.
Do you have the pictures posted on the buses?
Not on the buses, but in the hall, over here at the ITC and then down here in the hallway.
Okay. All right. And the last slide is a diversity, equity, and inclusion. It is an event that we've been asked to plan by Mr. Massimo. So the staff and I are working diligently right now to put together a doing business with CAT event. We're scheduling it for sometime here in the spring of 2024. We're currently meeting and trying to work through location and program and workshops and speaker and all of those things that go into planning this type of event. But I'm very excited. This will be the first one, and so there'll be more information coming to you all on this. And certainly, if you've got any thoughts or recommendations, we're certainly open to that as well. But we're going to move forward with this in 2024 and get it done.
I have one question. When I thought about it, I don't know whether it was a missed opportunity or whether we did or not, but the painting that we're having done, to me, that was an ideal opportunity to look at local small business. Did we do that?
I'm sorry. What was the question again? I'm
The
sorry.
exterior building painting.
I just thought
think
it was
we
such a
put
great
it out yet, have we?
opportunity.
I think it's
I don't
We were
think
talking
put it
about
out
it
yet.
at one of our board meetings. I think we did.
Maintenance.
We've talked about it being planned, but I think that one was gonna be done by our own folks. But there's other stuff where we can do, and we're gonna be talking in just a minute about the disparity study, which kind of fits in with this.
No, but that was on a board agenda, and it has to do with the painting and
Yeah.
Director Emister asked about the color.
But the
And then
plan was to do it with our own forces, not to contract it out.
That wasn't conveyed to us in
I
that.
thought
way.
that's what was discussed.
So last month, what was presented to the board and approved at that time
Yeah.
was it is contracted out. We
It is
awarded the
contracted out. For some reason, I thought we were doing that in
Just
our
for
own
the
forces.
No, it's-
external painting, but what we have coming forward today, some paint swatches for Director Emister.
So they authorized us contracting it out, but we haven't done that yet.
We have not.
So the thing about it is when we award but when we go out for it, we could specify.
Yeah, I mean,
But
it's a
again,
great
that,
opportunity for that
Completely
job.
agree.
You know, if you're
Completely
looking for
agree.
something to hang your hat on, that would be a good opportunity to do
And
that.
I'm sorry, just for further clarification, we have awarded the contract.
oh, we did award.
Yes.
Well, Beverly, I don't remember. I'm
the
sorry, I
only
don't
thing-
remember.
That's okay. They fell up underneath the CAO, so that's okay. Only thing that's pending now from moving forward is just any selection outside of the paint that staff recommended last month.
Yeah, I thought about it, I just thought about that was a golden opportunity to do, you
No, I
know.
think that's, but again, that goes back to this disparity study we're going to talk about in just a minute, and we'll tie those things together as a way to be much more intentional, Dr. Robinson, and I apologize that I just didn't remember. I didn't remember on that one that we had actually awarded the bid for the exterior for some reason.
Yeah,
Inside, got it.
yeah, and that just struck me when I remember us discussing it, and I thought, boy, I hope we did, but if we didn't, we'll just be more
Well,
intentional.
one of the things, like I said, that we'll talk about the disparity study in a minute, is how we are and aren't setting DBE goals right now, and we'll talk about that in just a second.
Okay,
Okay.
okay.
Anything else?
I have nothing else.
okay.
Thank you, CAO Sanders, that excellent report, and we appreciate it. Wanted to move through the items, Chairperson Stone, I'm gonna walk through the items that are proposed action for board approval by other business units, so that this committee has a line of sight into others, and then we'll move down to old and new business and then complete our meeting. So under the service delivery unit operations, there will be the purchase of 3 ADA accessible vehicles for the microtransit program. Ms. Cutter, correct me in case I'm not remembering this right either. We've actually already got the money now coming in from GDOT for this, correct? This is that last? But it's on the way. Okay, so by the time that we actually, I think, take delivery of these, those funds should be in the bank, so we won't even have to reimburse ourselves. We'll be able to just pay for it. But this is through the Georgia Transit Trust Fund, state funds, and these are 3 microtransit vehicles that will be being used as a part of our microtransit program expansion. and are really going to be critically important to how we move forward with the SMART grant activities as well. And that will be important for us to be competitive in SMART Grant 2, which should be coming out in March or April.
Okay.
Then under the financial, and this one we'll be purchasing off of a contract that procurement has already determined we are approved to be able to purchase off of, and be like the other vehicles that we have already. Under the financial and compliance service unit, and Ms. Cutter, I don't know if you have any particular comments on this, but this is for Sam's Club membership and a credit card application. This is, we routinely are buying, you heard earlier under wellness program, for example, fresh fruit and so forth. This is just to enable a greater efficiency of getting that done and not taking up capacity on the 2 limited use corporate cards that we do have, and use it very intentionally for those things that are needed for, you know, Sam's Club type purposes, whether that's the food and so forth. So
Would you have a maximum on the card or minimum on the card, or?
I'll ask Ms. Cutter.
Because, you know, you can get them where they give you $10,000 limit, or,
This action item is for us to submit an application. And once we receive the application and see what the options are, we'll bring it back to the board with a recommendation for.
yeah, I was just asking, based on the budget concerns, you know, do you have an idea of?
Yeah, well, as we grow the wellness program, the expenses grow. However, with our insurance, we get a $25,000 rebate to offset the cost. So, looking forward to that. We submitted, just today, a reimbursement of a little over $6,000. So we get up to $25,000. Use that to get some stationary bikes and massage chair to promote.
Yeah, so
And
the,
of course, to supplement the cost of the restaurant.
so, and that's one good way with the card to measure how much money you actually putting out with that, yeah. And you don't have to use it all just because they give it to you.
The next item is the disparity study RFP that we were talking about. One of the things, as you know, CAT has a remarkably low DBE goal right now. And one of the things that we want to do, and this is actually something that came up also during our triennial review, some topics around this, is to have a proper disparity study done that allows the analysis that's needed of our market, a proper analysis that comports with federal requirements and so forth as well, to examine what should our DBE participation be that we routinely are examining and thinking about as we set contracts, Director. And it also will enable us to have a better understanding of what's available in our market. So for example, if there are a number of minority-owned painting companies, it would allow us to be able to target even our procurement opportunities, knowing where there's capacity, and we can really help build that part of our community. But it's really important to have a proper and a current disparity study. These should be done about every 5 years or so, and establish our DBE goal or reestablish our DBE goal for contracting opportunities. So this is important. We're excited about getting it out there and getting it done. So that's what this item is about.
Now, I'm gonna tell you, now, when we talk about partnerships and doing a disparity study between the county and the city, these things have not been done, and we can't just use the studies already been done instead of spending money to do another one?
Well, typically, keep in mind now, the disparity study will be done for things that we would typically do. For example, the county or the city is not going to be typically saying, what does it look like in the bus market? What does this look like in this kind of market or that kind of market? We have some unique things. And so, yes, we should all work together in each of but we would have different portfolios, if you will.
I know, I got that part, but I'm saying, but the work that needs to be done in either one of those portfolios, you know, rather it's painting, rather it's bringing the pressure washer in, rather, you know, to me, as far as finding those companies, if there's already been a disparity study done by your 2 major entities, which is the city and the county and the Board of Education, I think CAT can save some money on this study by just already looking at the data they've already accumulated and somehow dissecting that data and see how it fits us. You see what I'm saying? Because I can understand the uniqueness, but each one of them are unique, and each one of them have done disparity studies. I'm just finding a way for us to kind of save some money, because we spend a whole lot of money.
I think what we can do before the board meeting is we'll look at what those other groups have done and see how it is, how it meets with FTA requirements, because we are the only one of those entities that would be subject to those, and determine, are there things that we can leverage into this, or can we maybe reduce the cost of this, still undertake it, but reduce the cost of it by requiring whoever is the selected vendor that they must consider the results that are already available in the market and incorporate that and not repeat those results, for example, if they're still current and if they're relevant and so forth. I think, though, that we want to be sure that what we have in a disparity study is something that comports with FTA requirements and regulations, and therefore we can rely upon it to actually set a DBE goal that they would recognize.
Yeah, and I think that should be all part of the research that we do prior to, putting it out there and maybe
Okay.
save some money.
Well, we will add that to this report before we bring it back to the full board. Thank you for the suggestion. Then the next item is a lot of talk, I know, about, we all know that there's a lot of work to be done on CAT policies, all kinds of different policies. One of the ones that that we have been doing some work on, in amongst others, is in security policies, procedures, and post orders. This is again coming under the safety, security, and risk management group, but this is now that there's a newly created department, it's to consider the policies and procedures for the operation of that department, and the approval of that by the board.
Okay.
So Planning, Development, and Infrastructure Services Unit, 2 items that are both related to Savannah St. Patrick's Day shuttle agreements, one with the City of Savannah and one with Port Wentworth. And then under old and new business, the paint swatches that I think Beverly brought around just a few moments ago, that are related to getting this building painted and such. We've already discussed the tabled item on the ITC interior renovation. And then 2 new business items will be the staff summary of an action item, new template. This is some work that Beverly has done as board administrator. And Beverly, did you want to add anything to that?
Thank you, Mr. Massimo. Is this request coming before the board is asking the board to review, provide
Director Stone, can you hear?
provide
Yeah.
additional feedback.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. For the documentation standards for the format and content of the staff reports.
Can you back up just one for me? And that's the old business for the St. Patrick's Day. Are we just talking, we're gonna renew the same contract? Are we looking at a different contract, or would there be some
There
changes?
are new ones that are in your package, Director. It's item 3D1 and 3D2, and these are
Right.
this year's shuttle agreements with both the City of Savannah and the City of Port Wentworth.
Are they giving us more money?
I don't remember the exact amount
Okay,
on
but I'll
that.
look, no, that's rhetorical. Hopefully it gives us more money.
Well, I think we're doing our very best to make sure it covers costs, I suppose, so.
We'd manage the cost, yeah.
All right. And then the last item is a fair policy study presentation. So another very important business activity that we should periodically undertake is a fair policy study. We've not suggesting that we'll be raising our fares, but keep in mind we are adding a number of new and different business lines. We've still got our fixed route and our paratransit, but now we're bringing in microtransit. We're looking at the potential for commuter express as it relates to all of the workforce development and connecting people to jobs activities. And then, of course, we still have some components of our system that are fare free. And thinking about how all of that fits together, and what we want to have a thoughtful consideration of looking at the foundational pieces of fare policy as it leads to decisions that may come before this board over the next 6 months, year, or whatever, with regard to fair structure and fair policy. We know for sure that microtransit is going to be looking at that question sooner. Is that fair going to be the same as fixed, or is it going to be more like para, or is it going to be something completely different? And so, and how do we keep fair policy centered on equity, as well as the financial performance that's required for our system? So anyway, this fair policy study is one that this is not making any particular recommendations at this point, but it's reviewing all of the available analysis that has been undertaken thus far so that the board can ask questions around that and we can start to formulate what future thinking policies look like.
And that's another contracted,
It's under our on-call task order contracts. Yes, ma'am.
well, I'll hold that question too, maybe for the board meeting, because I really have a question.
We utilize consultant services and on-call services when we either don't have the expertise, or we don't have the staffing capacity, or the time frame needed. Might be any or all of those things, or some combination thereof. And so we are very business-minded about how we use those, but it's very consistent with how our colleagues undertake these same kinds of efforts in other transit systems. We don't use more consultants than anybody else, and consistent generally with how these kinds of initiatives are undertaken both by the county and the city as well. We bring in the expertise when we need it.
May I make a suggestion, Mr. Massimo, that possibly that Dr. Robinson can ask some of her questions prior to the board meeting so that she'll have some of the answers.
Absolutely. Thank you. Appreciate that.
All right.
All right. And that's all of the items on the agenda. Director, we'll turn it back over to you.
Well, thank you, and thank you all for attending today's meeting. Our next meeting will be our board meeting, which is this Tuesday, February the 27th, starting at 11 o'clock. So thank you all.
Thank you.